What's up, guys? So I know I just got done making a couple positive videos, alright? And I like to really spread in a lot of positivity on this channel because taking the red pill in itself, especially at a young age, it's already kind of difficult enough when you're first going through the first stages of taking the red pill, which I know guys discover this channel and other red pill content, and then they binge watch this content, and sometimes they go through cycles of maybe depression or loneliness or feeling like their world's been flipped upside down. But I think a lot of times it's important for us men to talk about issues that are happening around the world so that we can understand what we're dealing with if we decide to get into long-term relationships, especially with unstable women, which unfortunately is the majority of women out there. All right, and that's just something that we as men have to understand moving forward, and it's only going to get worse because social media is a part of our generation heavily. I've talked about this many times. Social media is not going to go away, guys. In fact, it's only going to inflate their egos even more, and they're going to become even more narcissistic based on this social media use. She loves attention more than she loves you. We talk about this all the time. She doesn't just need your attention as a man, she needs other men's attention. Now, this video doesn't really have to do with social media, but I wanted to point that out because it's going to get worse, and these women are going to continue to act up and act out in crazy ways. And guess what, guys? The government and the court system is not going to have your back. And that's the honest to God truth. And we're going to talk about this in this video today. We're going to talk about this article I just read off the Daily Wire that I had a subscriber send me via email. Shout out to you. If you want to send me an email, youngmensdailyredpill@gmail.com. I have all my links in my channel. Anyways, guys, this article basically goes over how this woman hammered to death her husband and got away with it years later. She pleaded and got away with it because she claimed emotional abuse, all right? So after committing a murder, this woman, years later, gets off of this murder because she claims emotional abuse. And not only is she acquitted, but she gets to inherit, I guess he was a wealthy man, she gets to inherit his entire estate, all right? Not only his life insurance, number one, that she killed this man. She gets to inherit his entire estate, everything he worked for, guys. Can you imagine working your entire life, building up your kingdom, and then you mess with some crazy chick that ends up hammering you to death when you're asleep at night, only to end up getting in return everything you worked your entire life for? And you are basically seen after your death by women and by society, because you know how the news is going to twist the story. They're going to make it seem like he emotionally abused her for years. He was a horrible man. He's a monster. You know, these women, they tend to look back later on in life after evaluating a situation they're in, and they think, how can I benefit best from this? And a lot of times it either has to do with money, or they want to slap on some child support, or they want to hit you with more alimony payments. But they look back in life and they say, how much was that relationship worth? How much do I want to charge this man because I felt like he took advantage of me? I felt like. It's a lot of emotions, it's a lot of feelings. There's not a lot of logic. So without further ado, we're going to check out this article. I feel like I've been rambling on and on a lot, but I just wanted to make that point clear to a lot of you guys that are watching this. I'm not trying to be depressing, but I like to get out a lot of this information for you guys so you guys can understand what potentially could happen to you if you build up your kingdom and you decide to settle down with a woman. All right, this is the honest truth, nothing but the truth. I'm not saying all women are going to do this to you, but I'm saying it's definitely possible, and the courts aren't going to have your back. The government's not going to have your back. The title is, She Murdered Her Husband with a Hammer. Now she gets to inherit his estate after claiming emotional abuse. All right. A woman previously convicted of murdering her husband but successfully appealed down to a lesser charge of manslaughter will now be able to fully inherit his estate instead of the couple's children. Either way, she was going to inherit something. The children were going to cost money. She would have got payment for the children, or she was going to inherit his estate. She probably said, I'd rather inherit the estate because I don't want to be responsible for children. I only had children with this man basically because I wanted to get payment out of him if he leaves. And she decided to choose the estate in this case. In 2010, Sally Challen, who, by the way, white women age horribly. Let's just take a look here. White women, this looks like a whole lot of mess. All right. In 2010, Sally Challen went to visit her estranged husband with a hammer in her purse. As her husband Richard ate lunch, Sally beat him to death with a hammer, leaving a note on his body that said, "I love you." She then fled the home and was later arrested and convicted for his murder. Demonetized. Sally and Richard were married for 3 decades, the Mirror reported. At her murder trial, Sally repeatedly admitted to murdering her husband, but wouldn't say why, except that she suspected he was seeing another woman, and after stalking him, discovered a voicemail from another woman asking Richard for dinner. To dinner. Her niece, Dalla, said that Sally, quote unquote, hacked into his email and asked neighbors who he had been at the house with. I suspect she was stalking him. She's already crazy, guys. The couple had already separated at the time of the murder. Richard moved out and began dating again, while Sally struggled to move on and eventually begged Richard to take her back. Sally told police after the murder, "I wasn't thinking I'm going to kill Richard. I was thinking I'm going to go there and there's a possibility depending on how it panned out." You don't hide a hammer in your purse while visiting someone that you have quote unquote beef with, or you feel like potentially is cheating on you, and you might accidentally end up hacking to death behind his head if you didn't already premeditate that, if you didn't already have a motive or a reason to do that. All right, that's an excuse, and clearly that excuse fooled everyone except us red pill guys, except the guys that know what's up. So we're gonna keep reading what happens here. Dalla, the Mirror reported, was convinced there was more to Sally's reasoning behind killing her husband. So she reached out to Justice for Women, a feminist organization that defends women who killed their partners and claim to have been abused. Unbelievable, guys. Unbelievable. This is why I tell you guys, you need to understand you are not protected. You are not protected as the man. For the most part in this world, in this society, you are on your own, all right? Outside of this YouTube manosphere, outside of maybe the few red pill friends that you have, a lot of us don't even have red pill friends. A lot of us just consume this content, and our connection is with content creators or guys in the comment section. Maybe you guys comment to each other and eventually meet up later on, maybe at conventions. But guys, they have feminist organizations all over the place. The majority of abuse centers are for women. When looking at the statistics, abuse for men and women is about the same. If not, men get actually abused more than women, yet it's like 99-1. After Sally met with the organization, she started claiming she had been emotionally abused throughout her marriage to Richard. Oh, then she suddenly realized, oh, after being married for all these decades and having children with this guy and talking to this feminist organization, now I feel like I was being emotionally abused. Bull. From the outside, friends described their marriage as old-fashioned and said Sally was, quote, all about servicing Richard, end quote. The couple lived in luxury, as Richard owned a second-hand car garage. The couple lived in a wealthy area of Surrey with their 2 sons, James and David, who each attended private school. This guy's extremely wealthy. Most of the accusations are from Sally herself, with little corroborating evidence. She claimed that she had got a part-time job at the Police Federation. Richard ordered her to start paying the couple's bills and purchasing all their food. And she's gonna say that's emotional abuse probably, because she doesn't want to work. Her brothers said that they noticed that over the years she started voicing her opinion less and less, though no suggestion is made that this was because of Richard. Sally also claimed that after a male friend in Los Angeles hugged and kissed her while she was vacationing with Richard in 1998, her husband pushed her, quote, into the bedroom and forced sex on me. He was brutal and said nothing, end quote. David, one of the couple's sons, said that whatever happened in America, quote, was never talked about, but it was always clear, you never crossed my father, end quote. Sally claimed she could never refuse Richard when he wanted sex and would be told to, quote, get ready, end quote, when he wanted it. An indication that she should clean herself. Yeah, you should be cleaning yourself if you're married, and that's just my opinion. You're married, right? At some point, Richard started refusing to have sex with Sally, and she began trying to tempt him with raunchy outfits. She started stalking her husband and checking his phone and pockets to discover he was frequenting a brothel, which upset her. Well, if you're not going to abide by this man's rules and abide by cleaning or getting ready for him, as this article says, I'm just going to be honest with you women, if you're watching this, you can expect your man to cheat on you and leave you. If you don't want to clean up, if you don't want to be submissive, if you don't want to be intimate, sexual, if you don't want to get on bended knee, in a sense, if you don't want to spice up things, we're going to get bored with you real quick. And if you have an attitude about that, don't get mad when a man decides to cheat. I'm not saying cheating is right. I don't think you should be married and be cheating. But don't be surprised when a man decides to do this if you decide to be defiant. All right? If you decide to act like a feminist, like these feminists out here, don't be surprised if you get cheated on and you end up being a hurt feminist just like a lot of these women who refuse to be submissive. She even called the cops after the brothel was raided to report her husband as a visitor. Wow. She told a police call that her husband was dead, but Richard took to the phone and told the police things were fine. In 2008, Sally left Richard, but soon regretted the move as she was unable to cope with single life. And she couldn't afford single life. They won't tell you this. Richard went on to date and seemed to have no issue moving on. Of course, men age like fine wine, men get richer. Their son David lived with Sally while James lived with Richard. Sally eventually begged Richard to take her back. He agreed, but wrote up a post-nuptial agreement that allegedly demanded Sally quit smoking, only visit him once a week, never interrupt him, and go through with the divorce. She was also told that she would only receive $200,000, I don't know what currency that is, in the event they separate again, which amounted to a fraction of Richard's assets. The odd and conflicting alleged demands hurt Sally, she said, and on that day in 2010, she went to his home with a hammer in her purse. Richard allegedly demanded she travel in the rain to get ingredients for his lunch, and Sally suspected he wanted her out of the house to talk to one of his lady friends when he most likely just wanted her to submit, and she just couldn't submit because she's difficult, like many of these women are. There was so much going on in my head, quote, there was so much going on in my head. I knew he was seeing another woman, end quote. Because you're not being submissive and you're not arousing him anymore, you're not putting in any effort, you're being difficult. Not saying that that's right, but that's what happens, and this is why a lot of men cheat. Sally said in a statement during her appeal process, quote, I looked at his computer and I could see he was sending emails to various women, end quote. She would later admit, quote, I don't know why I did it. I don't know why I had the hammer in my bag, end quote. Now she's starting to, I don't know why I did it. I don't know why. How much money am I getting? It's ridiculous, man. Their son David cleaned their father's blood from the kitchen and said he only learned of the alleged abuse after Richard died. Even though the children admitted in a BBC documentary that it was, quote, obviously a struggle to let her be our mum again, end quote, they were happy when he was released from jail in 2019, when she was released from jail in 2019. She had been convicted to 22 years back in 2011. Sally began her appeal by claiming coercive control. After it became a crime in England and Wales in 2015, the BBC described coercive control as, quote, a pattern of behavior by an abuser to harm, punish, or frighten their victim, end quote. I.e., she doesn't want to be submissive. She wants to be married, but not actually put in the marriage work, put in the work it takes to be married. She just wants the title. The media covering Sally's story have positioned her as an abused wife who fought back without acknowledging the lack of evidence for her claims. Sally was able to appeal her murder conviction and take a lesser charge of manslaughter. She was released after a judge determined she had served enough time for Richard's death. This week, Sally was also granted her request to inherit Richard's estate after a judge waived the rule that barred people who killed their spouses from inheriting their estate. This can happen to you. Yes, you that is watching this video, this can potentially happen to you if you choose to fall back into the plantation for whatever reason. If maybe later on in life, after building up your kingdom, building up your purpose, you decide, hey, let me dibble and dabble into a long-term relationship with this woman because she loves me. All right, love is dangerous. Love isn't real. All right, love does not exist in the minds of females. They love money, They love resources. They love the security that money brings and your job brings. But she doesn't really love you. She doesn't really want to submit to you. She doesn't really want to get married and be submissive. She wants to be married so she can tell her girlfriends that are single that she's married, all right? And she wants to put she's married on her Facebook. She wants to take wedding pictures. She wants to have a bridal shower. She wants to have bachelorette parties. But she really doesn't want to be married and put in that work. Now, I don't know all the details with this story, but this just comes to show you that us men, we are in a world by ourselves. Don't expect anyone to come and save you. Don't expect the government to ever come and save you. Or even if you're murdered, in this instance, for example, you will still potentially lose it all and be blamed for your own murder. All right? Let me just say that again. You might potentially lose your life, lose everything you own, and then be blamed after your death that someone killed you for your own murder and that you deserve to die because you were an emotionally abusive man and you forced her to submit. This is the reality that we're living in. Women don't want to submit. Women will kill you, potentially, I'm not saying all, in order to inherit your estate, your resources, everything you worked for your entire life. And the government says a big F you, man. We don't care about you. She always has Big Daddy government, whether you like it or not. That's just the reality of the situation, guys. Remember this moving forward. Remember, if you haven't let it sink in yet, if you think that, oh, this would never happen to me. Yes, this is an extreme story, and you might be thinking, this can't happen to me, this might never happen to me. It's just a sensationalized, crazy story that you would see on like a docu-series. But guys, I want to let you know this can happen to any of us if we begin to have that mindset that we might potentially get married and we might decide to invest in these women nowadays who, at the drop of a hat, can switch up their emotions and can say that they were being emotionally abused and then kill you. You will end up being framed for being the bad person after you're dead. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. And my main goal for making this video is not to really scare you. Well, it is kind of to scare you. To just get it in your head and remember these things, that this can happen to you. You're not an exception. But I know a lot of us are on a purpose right now. Look, I know a lot of us are building up wealth, especially being a red pill man, going your own way. You're saving a lot of money. All that money, all that time that you used to spend maybe trying to attract females, buying clothes, buying cars, whatever it was that you used to do to try to attract women, we're using that money and we're just saving it, we're investing it, we're learning about stocks, we're building up our own small businesses. A lot of us guys have our own things that we're doing on the side. So how horrible would it be if you built up this wealth and you met someone down the line and they ended up ending your life and taking all of it once you're gone? That's what I want you guys to think about. That's what I want you guys to remember. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you share it. More men need to hear this. More men need to speak up about this injustice, all right? Because the government doesn't have our backs. Society doesn't have our backs. We have each other's backs here on this channel. Here on this content. Here in this content. Here in this manosphere. We all have each other's backs. Continue to go your own way. Continue to take the red pill every single day. Stay blessed, guys. Have a good one.